Project management can demand some difficult conversations. So in this video, I want to give you 5 tips to help you with challenging communication. Tip number 1 is to have a plan and to trust the process. Before you go into the conversation, have a plan. Think about how you're going to conduct that conversation. And primarily, think about outcomes. And the most important thing to think about is what is your ideal outcome from this dialogue. But also think about the range of acceptable outcomes, the outcomes which for you will give you a result that you can live with. That way you can design a process for the communication that will drive towards the acceptable outcomes, ideally to hit your ideal outcome, but also one which will spot blockers along the way or side turnings so that you can avoid ending up with an undesirable outcome. There are a number of practical and effective processes that you can lift off the shelf, and I describe one of them in our eBook on challenging communication. More about that later. Tip number 2 is all about timing. Have your challenging conversations as soon as you can, but no sooner than you should. For most difficult, challenging communication, the ideal time to have that conversation is as soon as possible. But of course, although difficult messages can get more difficult as time goes on, and delaying won't do you any favours, it's certainly a mistake to go in to any difficult communication circumstance not fully prepared, or indeed to start a challenging conversation when the emotional temperature is too high, either for yourself or for the other person. And that's why I say no sooner than you should. Think about the ideal timing and get as close to it as you possibly can. Tip number 3. Being right is less important than the outcome. So be prepared to take it on the chin. Be prepared to give the other person a win, to credit them with the idea that makes a breakthrough. It's more important that you get that breakthrough, that you get the outcome you want, than it could ever be to feel good about yourself and how clever you are and how wise you were. If the other person goes away thinking they got the outcome they wanted, they created the dialogue, then as long as you got the outcome you wanted, that's absolutely fine. And they'll feel good, and they'll feel good about you, and everything will be excellent. As a side tip, I want to suggest to you the best way to be right as often as possible, which is to notice as soon as you're in danger of being wrong and to stop and change your attitude. Fess up to your mistake, say you're sorry, put things right and move on. Because if you're not prepared to make changes, then inevitably you're going to be wrong some of the time. If, on the other hand, you're always prepared to detect when you're in danger of being wrong and to change your mind, to change your approach, then you can be right pretty much all the time. Tip number 4 is all about the power of you and I. The words you or your or yours, any of those words which denote the other person in the conversation, are enormously powerful. So are the words I and me and mine, which denote yourself. The problem with these powerful words is it's like they each have a light side and a dark side. So let's look at the light side and dark side of each. We'll start with the word I, or me, or my, or mine, or any of those pronouns. They're sometimes known in language as the first person. So, the light side of I and me and mine, using these words effectively and properly, is when you use them to take responsibility for things that properly belong to you. I fear that this might happen. I take responsibility for this mistake. Using the word I or me or my or mine to take proper responsibility is enormously powerful. But there's a dark side to those pronouns too. The dark side is when you use them to take something which the other person may not think is properly yours. Well, I think this is the right way to do it. This is what I need to get out of the transaction. That creation was mine. I came up with those ideas. All of those things come across as selfish, and therefore I refer to them as the dark side of the first person. And just like the first person pronouns I, me, my, and mine, the third person pronouns of you, your, yours, they too each have a light side and a dark side. When you're talking to somebody and you address them directly, what the project can do for you, how you are affected by the things that are going to happen, when you use you respectfully to properly allocate things to the other person, then that's the light side. They will light up because they'll know that you are addressing them directly and they'll feel properly respected. But on the dark side, when you use these words in an accusatory or disrespectful manner, you said this, or it's your fault, that makes people feel disrespected, blamed. It makes them feel intimidated, possibly even diminished. And that will make your difficult conversation even harder. So think about the light side and the dark side of the way that you use pronouns. Tip number 5 is to remember that the behaviour is not the same as the person. What we do may say something about us in the moment, but it doesn't necessarily say something about us as a person. Long-term patterns of behaviour may indeed indicate the sort of person we are, but one misstep, we all do it. It's perfectly okay to deprecate bad behaviour, discourtesy, disrespect, rudeness in someone you're talking with. But never stop respecting the person for who they are. Recognise that we do not always act properly on our intentions. We may intend to be courteous and respectful, but in the heat of a difficult conversation, we may come across as less than ideally respectful. We make mistakes, and if you can see through those mistakes, then you can carry your conversation forward, continuing to respect the other person. And remember that the position people will argue for isn't necessarily their deep interest in the situation. It's just what they think their interest is. Your job in any difficult conversation, whether it's conflict resolution or whether it's a negotiation or whether it's a reprimand of some kind, is to find out what really matters to them, what the outcomes are that will make them happy and give them the rewards they need, and work towards those. To see through their position and also to recognise that your position, the position that you're taking, may not fully represent your own interests, especially if you haven't taken to heart tip 1 and thought very carefully about your outcome from the outset. These 5 tips are inspired by our Kindle-exclusive ebook on challenging communication for project managers. I do recommend that you check it out. It covers everything we've talked about and a lot more. It gives you a detailed process for planning and structuring a complicated conversation and more. It has 5 chapters, and the first chapter is Managing Difficult Conversations, a guide for project managers. The second chapter is about managing conflict, everything a project manager needs to know, and we follow that in chapter 3 with a part 2, which is about ways to get conflict and conflict management right. Chapter 4 is a guide to negotiation. Don't lose when you can win. And chapter 5 is about how coaching skills will make you a better project leader. Challenging Communications is available in the Kindle store. You'll find it on the Amazon website in every region where Amazon is represented. It's priced very economically. Do take a look at it. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you can be sure never to miss one of our videos. And until the next one, take care.